to this FAnews AIE Conference Sponsor Spotlight. Joining me today is Phila Mabua, General Manager Insurance at NetStar, one of the conference platinum sponsors. Thank you for joining me,
Thank
Phila.
you very much. It's only a pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity as well.
It's an absolute pleasure. So NetStar sits in a very important space where technology, mobility, safety, and insurance all meet. Why is the AIE conference an important platform for NetStar this year?
So generally what we do from our end is we look at what the theme is, because that is quite pivotal and important for us in terms of where we find ourselves at this juncture as a telemetry company. So a lot of people know us for our stolen vehicle recovery, but there's a lot more from what NetStar has to offer. So if you talk about telemetry and the theme that is currently being showcased at the conference, it becomes very important for us to be able to be part of this so that we can interconnect with the insurers and the industry in its entirety so that we can bring the necessary changes that need to be brought into the space as we move forward.
As a platinum sponsor, what message would NetStar like to bring to insurers, brokers, underwriting managers, and industry leaders that are all convening at the AIE conference? And I believe there's like 1,400 people attending.
So for us, it's very important that within this platform, we bring forward the following. The old way of doing insurance is slowly eroding, and a new way of coming into the insurance space is starting to come in. We're starting to see this trend in the world where UBI or user-based insurance platforms are starting to become very important. So we believe that telemetry is at the center of that in order to make sure that we provide good data, the right kind of information that insurers would need in order for them to rework their current proxies into this UBI world. So that for us is quite an important thing. So for us to be a part of this conference so we can get that engagement and that conversation across.
Random question. What makes NetStar the better, for lack of a better word, tracking company than the rest? No names, just a general comment.
No, most definitely. Look, there's a lot that's being said around tracking and so forth, and NetStar is very different. One, we are part of a bigger group, and that bigger group is a technology structured company, which is Altron. So we form part of the Altron group. What makes us then different is that we have the ability to utilize our data totally differently. We have the ability to get our data to speak to specific needs that insurers have. So outside of just stolen vehicle recovery, there's a lot more that we can do for companies. I mean, in terms of our partners that we currently have, we provide very specific tailored information or data points, including things like FNOL, which is the first line of notification at incident stage, which then sits at the center of what our purpose is, which is saving lives.
Vehicle risk remains a major issue for insurers and for clients, from theft and hijacking to claims cost and changing the very important driving behavior. Let's get people off their phones. What trends are you seeing that the industry should be paying closer attention to?
I think it's very important for the industry to start looking at what the proxies look like in terms of people taking out insurance. So the first one would be we have a much younger demographic coming into the workplace. They're the people that are buying vehicles and are getting insurance. If we don't get to a point where our insurance premiums and our numbers start making sense to that younger demographic who wants to know how am I being charged, why am I being charged, and what is it that I'm paying for. They want to see these things, they want to interact with it. So if then the industry does not pivot itself into that particular direction, that cohort of younger drivers, new drivers, and the ones that will take the insurance industry forward will be lost. And we all know that from an insurance perspective, not a lot, or rather a lot of our people are currently uninsured. And what we're trying to do is bring in models that will make it easier for people to get affordable insurance, good insurance, and insurance that they can interact with on a regular basis, as opposed to only at annual renewal or when there's a claim.
Yeah. Data and technology are becoming central to how insurers understand and manage risk. How do you see telematics and connected vehicle data changing the insurance conversation?
So let me give you a simple example, right? A client gets involved in an accident. The first thing is, if he's unconscious, do we have the ability to trigger an emergency line so that the client can then be assisted? So that would be point number one. Number two is that when you have telemetry in there, you don't necessarily have to wait for the client to fill out a claim form or to lodge the claim. You can start doing the work in the background, which then shortens your time frame when it comes to having that claim paid out. And also, when you have the right telemetry data, you have the ability to quickly speak to your client and say, look, we are looking at your driving. It's not where it's supposed to be. It is going to increase your premiums. But if you were to do one, two, three, four, and five, improve on these particular aspects, this will then in turn save you a lot of money from an insurance perspective. So that is the sort of drive and the sort of information or new worlds that we want everybody to start interacting with and getting into that particular space. So technology plays a large role in making sure that the insurance industry gets closer to the client, has a far more better interaction base with the client, and it allows that particular world to look very different to what it looks like at this present moment, which is why the theme in terms of Renaissance resonates so much with us.
Do we have any data on accidents or bad maybe accidents still caused by people that don't understand that they have Bluetooth on their phone or that they don't have Bluetooth on their phone? Because I think you just see that so much. People driving these fancy cars and they still sit with their phone next to their ear. Have we got any data on the amount of accidents that's been caused by that, or don't
We,
we?
we, we actually do, because we do look at when we do our accident reconstruction, we actually do have those data points that do show us that. And at the moment, we are seeing that about 35 to about 40% of the accidents that we are seeing are as a cause of lapse of concentration, which 90% of the time is linked to cell phones. So those are also some of those pinpoints that we need to be able to bring forward to them. And telemetry does do this for the insurer to be able to show that at these points and junctures, your client is mostly on the phone or has a lapse of concentration, which then leads to harsh braking, hard cornering, or things such as collision avoidance, or what leads to bumper bashings, especially at high peak traffic times.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Because you think you sit in traffic, you're not really moving. So
You
get on
think
your
that,
phone,
yeah,
check your social media quickly, whoop, bump into a
and you
bumper.
bump into somebody else, or somebody bumps into you,
Yeah,
because you are steadily sitting there and everybody else is moving. And the assumption from the other party, who might also be on their phone and not necessarily concentrating, starts
is
moving,
that you all
and
move.
you
Yeah,
get hit. So it's
yeah.
very important that that is brought to the fore and people have a greater understanding of the impact of such things in terms of accidents and incidents.
Hey, but people don't listen. So brokers and advisors are often the ones who need to explain risk solutions to clients in practical terms. What should brokers understand better about the role of vehicle tracking, recovery, and data in protecting their clients?
I think the most important thing from a broker and insurance industry in general and advisors is to understand that what we do is not just vehicle recovery. There's a lot of data that they can benefit from in terms of partnering with us. As an example, we are able to show them data points around nighttime driving, daytime driving, how far the person's driving. So it doesn't only just save around, how the person's driving and where the person's driving, but it also talks to how the risk is covered. For example, a lot of people would be covered under private use, whereas they use their vehicle for
Oh,
business.
yes.
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, when a claim then does come through, the claim gets rejected as a part of that. However, if you are then partnered with us and you are using the telemetry industry data that we are able to give you, you're able to easily inform your client, say, look, we see that this is the type of usage that you're doing with your vehicle. Our assumption is that this is for business use. Let's get you covered correctly, which then in turn saves the client from being repudiated or they claim not being paid out and sitting with a vehicle that they still have to pay for from a finance perspective. So we also are trying to create a economy or an ecosystem where individuals are able to interact with the insurers at any given point in time, as opposed to when the client wants to claim or wishes to cancel the insurance.
A quick question, are you feeding your brokers with that information, or do they have to ask? And if they ask, how easy or difficult is that process to really get some insights? Because I think feeding your client with things that you pick up would be like quite amazing. And I know we all don't always read all the stuff, but how does that process work?
So in recent months, we've started doing thought leadership pieces, which we are doing with partners like yourself and others within the industry, where we are disseminating this information so that the risk mitigation portion that is being done by our brokers and our partners is an easier one through the information that we have to provide. But also what we have done in the past month is we've started engaging with our partners a lot more differently, showing them what their books look like, what the sort of risks that sit within their environments are. And we've got a rating system. So brokers are able to, or insurers are able to play around with it so that their risking models can play within that particular space, and that interaction becomes different in terms of book management for risk.
Yeah, because I think it from a broker perspective, I think it would be quite cool if you really get from your other insurer or your tracking company, sorry, I know you fall wider than that. That stats without asking for that, but obviously not everyone, because that can create quite a workload. But if you really have those standout clients that where you can see there's really bad driving behavior or these really specifically unique cases, to not approach the client from a bulk perspective, but really individually go to that client and say, there needs to be, and I think that's the role of the broker these days, more a risk manager than anything else. Have that conversation with your client because trouble is brewing.
Yeah. Well, look, on our end, we have very specific brokers that we actually do this particular piece of work with. And what we have seen is that even their risk selection becomes a lot better because they then are able to move their clients into different insurers based on the kind of risk that they pose. And as that driving improves and so forth, they then are able to place those guys into better not better insurers, but into insurance cohorts that actually functionally work for them in terms of the need that they have. Yeah. So we definitely do that. We've got niche products that we actually work with specific brokers on to say, I am looking for drivers who are within the age of 23 to 35, because I know that that cohort is the one that's currently buying vehicles, but everybody's insuring them differently or giving them higher premiums. I want to manage that particular book, have a look at it differently. So UMAs are coming to us with those kind of things, and that is what we best solution for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget the smaller broker now.
Yeah.
If you at the conference could get insurers, brokers, tech providers, and clients into one room for 10 minutes, what is the one question you think we should be asking more seriously about vehicle risk, data, and prevention?
I think the most important question that should be asked is that, are the current models that we are using going to be, or rather, maybe let me put it this way, are the current processes and proxies that we are using to price going to give us an opportunity in the future to attract more people? If they're not, then this is the time that we need to start partnering together and changing that narrative so we can get into a better space, so clients have a better understanding of how they're risk rated, what they're paying for, how they can improve their risk, and also how it is that they can get themselves into a better affordability space in terms of the insurance. And it no longer looks like a grudge purchase, but a symbiotic relationship between the insurer and the insured.
That's a great question you need to ask, because like you've touched on it more than once, is the an underinsured issue in our country is a big crisis, and I think motor per se is a big problem. And how I think that conversation has been going on for years, but how do we get that sorted?
No, most
The
definitely.
grudge
And
purchase
technology,
conversation.
definitely the grudge purchase conversation is rather an important one. And we need to change that narrative, because insurance plays a big role in terms of making sure that the client is properly covered. When something does happen, they are not left out in the cold. So we want to bring that relationship much closer and change the insured's view of what insurance actually is.
Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we will definitely connect at the conference. Thanks,
But
Phila.
definitely looking forward to seeing you guys at the conference, and I hope that everybody else who hasn't yet registered finds a spot. But as far as I know, is that everything's been taken up. So I guess it's a call to action for next year to get ready much earlier and get your seat in front of that conference. Yeah.
Thanks, Phila.
Thanks a
Appreciate.
lot, Ben. Thanks, A.